Let's chat about the England games. Steve is over there in Germany. Jude Bellingham, obviously the standout player for England, scoring that winning goal in the win over Serbia in our first game. How was it getting to and from the stadium first, Steve? Because that's the stuff that I've seen everybody talking about. Did they put on poor trains to make you feel at home?
Yeah, I mean it was like Deutsche Bahn is run by Avanti. I mean, good Lord, what an absolute shit show they are. An absolute mess.
Is it them or is it UEFA? Because I've seen people pointing fingers of blame at both.
I mean, UEFA have questions to answer, certainly in terms of the sort of around the ground sort of immediacy, sort of on the stadium footprint issues. Because, like, normally when you go to these big events, there are massive signposts up telling you where each gate is, and you've got volunteers directing you who know where they're going and are actually helpful and stuff like that. And there's basically none of that. It was very noticeable at in Gelsenkirchen that the most prominent signposts were for the VIP entrances, which kind of says a lot about UEFA's priorities, I think. But yeah, the tram situation was a mess, and it's weird because I mean Schalke get 50,000-60,000 in that stadium in the second division every other week, and yet the locals seem to get themselves to and from the ground seemingly without too many issues. But I think if you're a local, then you probably have your own means of getting to and from. You'd obviously have a lot of people driving, but yeah, obviously tourists, we don't know where we're going, so we're kind of at the whim of whatever public transport options are available.
Did you get back okay? Do you know anybody that was stranded at the station? Because I saw all those videos online.
Yeah, I mean, I know one person who was still there at 1:30 in the morning. So yeah, that wasn't overly fun. But I think he made whatever connecting train he needed to get. I mean, the train that I was booked on. I mean, I was fully prepared for it taking forever to get away. But actually, the only real option I had, other than staying over, was a train at like 2:00 ish out of Essen, a town sort of 10 miles down the road. Which got me back here to Koblenz at 5 in the morning, which was lovely yesterday morning. But yeah, it was disjointed. Basically, Deutsche Bahn, everything is delayed these days. There's no kind of like the old stereotype of the Germans know how to run trains. Everything runs on time. No, I mean
it's a myth. It's a myth.
Yeah, you are very lucky if your train is within 2 or 3 minutes of the scheduled time these days. Yeah, it's just the trains themselves are nice enough, and they obviously go fast, so you get from point to point reasonably quickly,
eventually
at a decent price. In fairness, if you, I mean much like back home, it only takes one minor sort of infrastructure issue on the line and everything grinds to a halt. And I know there were issues for people that were getting train in from like Brussels or Amsterdam or surrounding cities outside of Germany over the weekend. Like there were trains cancelled because of trees down on the line because of a storm and all kinds of issues. It's just been
proper like being at home.
Yeah, the nightmare has kind of just come from the UK and hasn't ended really from a transport perspective, unfortunately.
Once you got there though, did you enjoy the game? Because the atmosphere looked absolutely immense watching on the telly.
Yeah, it was good. Yeah, really enjoyed it actually. It was I mean, it was a little slightly tense the last half an hour, and yet at the same time I kind of always felt we just about held them at arm's length. I mean, they had one shot on target, which was from 25 yards, kind of directly above Pickford's head, which he comfortably tipped over. We had the best chances. Kyle Walker should have made it 2-0 in the first half, and if we do so, then that would have kind of capped that opening half an hour where we were brilliant and we just tore them to pieces. Having not got the second goal, it did look like it was a deliberate tactic to then kind of just see out the remaining 15 minutes of that first half. Problem was we then never quite got going in the second half. which then kind of gave Serbia a little bit of confidence. And they are one of these teams that kind of almost play on vibes. So even though they've obviously got a tactical plan, if you basically give them a sniff, then their fans get involved in the game all of a sudden, because they were very quiet for 50 minutes. But if you give them something to kind of get involved with, all of a sudden the noise ratchets up and the team kind of feeds off of it. So yeah, I think we kind of let that slip a little bit. But in fairness, the substitutions, and this is something that obviously Southgate has had a lot of criticism for during his tenure, those substitutions made the difference. Bowen replaced Saka, who was obviously knackered and been booted up in the air multiple times. He's not played an awful lot in the last month or so, so I think an hour was probably about right from him. Bowen did what Saka was doing. He was very direct, ran the fullback, and should have had an assist. I mean, I'm not combination of not quite sure how Kane's missed it and not quite sure how the keeper saved it. But yeah, that should have been 2-0, and that would have been game over, and it would have been very comfortable from there. But I thought Gallagher was the difference maker when he came on, because it seems kind of counterintuitive that in order to wrestle control of the game back, we bring on someone who looks like isn't kind of in control of anything, because he's kind of herring around all over the place. But actually having that energy in the midfield, because Bellingham had been kind of everywhere in the first half, but they seemed to find a way of shackling him second half. Just meant that we lost control of the midfield, and Gallagher coming in, just winning everything back and being available for these little give and goes, which just allowed us to again slow the tempo down, bring everything back and under our control. And yeah, it was. I think it was about as comfortable 1-0 as you could hope for in this sort of tournament. It never really. I mean, while they had pressure and they were around the edge of our box a lot, it never felt like we'd kind of let them get away from us. So yeah, I mean, there's clearly stuff to work on. I'm not sure Alexander-Arnold in midfield is really the thing, especially against decent opposition. But yeah, other than that, I thought selection wise, it was kind of fine. I want Foden to get involved a little bit more, but perhaps if Shaw is fit at any point during this tournament, maybe that kind of frees him up to drift inside a little bit more, where he's a bit more comfortable.
It was very sort of Saints-esque, wasn't it, Glenn? We started well, got the goal, and then there was that sort of drop off after half time. What did you make of the second half and the performance?
The second half will be used by a lot of people as a stick to hit the manager with, again, because it's the sort of thing we've seen quite a few times where we've got ahead and then, for whatever reason, stopped attacking. What I thought happened at the start of the second half is that Serbia pushed their fullbacks higher and engaged more. And as Steve said, Saka was getting kicked, and they were just trying to be more aggressive. And we didn't really, Gareth Southgate didn't seem to really do much at that point, and the players took a while to work it out. And yeah, Steve's spot on. When they freshened up the midfield, it really sort of like made a difference towards the control of the game. So it was, I thought the opening half an hour was as good as I've seen England play for a long time, especially given, you had a couple of players in there who, Mark Gurhey, I thought was excellent, centre back. Everyone's a little bit worried about the defence. I thought defensively, Trippier and Walker played well, but Trippier is so right-footed. It's he doesn't use his left foot at all, which caused us problems at the other end of the pitch because Foden was drifting inside. There was no natural width on the left, so I'd like to have seen Foden sacrifice himself a little bit and stay out there, like Harry Kane had to do. Because Harry Kane wasn't dropping deep, and he probably only touched the ball about 10 times the whole game. But
was it once in the first half?
Yeah, he was staying high to give us an out ball. So I think I'd like to have seen sort of like Foden do that, and and stay out left just to give us a little bit of balance. But yeah, lots of things to work on. At the end of the day, it's the first game of a tournament. We've won it. They're one of the they're going to be a decent side in that group. I think they've got a good chance of getting through Serbia. So whereas England now, we move on to Denmark and win that, and we're through, and happy days. But I think Denmark will be seen as a slightly tougher opposition than Serbia, perhaps. So be interesting to see whether he picks Mr. Alexander-Arnold in midfield again for that game, because I suspect Conor Gallagher will start.
Did that work for you, Alfie? There was a few things that we were talking about before the game, wasn't there? With Alexander-Arnold coming into midfield, and then that left-hand side with Phil Foden. Just it didn't really click at times.
Yeah, I think the Alexander-Arnold one is probably the trickiest one to assess, because in the warm-up games, I thought he looked good. He was, actually played on the right for one of the warm-up games and looked the best there. But I think that he is something different, and he does keep the ball. He can play it forward. There was obviously a couple of times where he just got caught in possession. I think maybe receiving the ball with back to goal in a position which he never has in club football is probably the reason behind that. But I think I would probably trial it again, if I'm being totally honest with you. I think we all knew that is not going to happen in the quarterfinals or whenever they play an Italy or a France. I think everybody knows that Conor Gallagher will be in for the reason that Steve outlined when he came on. So I don't think it's a case of, let's see if this works for the rest of the tournament. I think it's just trying to sort of break down these, call them lesser teams. So I think that was what was in Gareth Southgate's mind. But that being said, he has played him in 5 of the last 6 England qualifiers, pretty much in that position as well. So I think, to be fair, maybe he's gearing up for that. And the left side, we didn't learn anything about the left side, in my opinion. I think we knew that Trippier was going to be, it looks unbalanced. And I came into this tournament worried about this for the first time. I'm usually quite a optimistic England fan, I think, and obviously I don't claim to be the biggest fan in the world. Steve's the one travelling around everywhere, but I do always back us to do well, and I think that Gareth Southgate's done a brilliant job. But I came into this tournament thinking, well, I'm a little bit worried because Luke Shaw's not going to be fit until the 3rd game, which thankfully wrong, is going to be fit on Thursday, hopefully, which is great. And obviously there's this whole Foden conundrum where people actually want to put Bellingham in a 6 and an 8, and you think, well, those people live among us, but you need Bellingham on the highest line playing like he does for Real Madrid, and it does cause a problem for Foden. So yeah, I didn't think I learned too much from that performance. I think we need to see another one. I think at the end of the day, you have to win the first game of the tournament. And I listened to the podcast with Gary Lineker and Alan Shearer, and I mean, Alan Shearer played at 4 or 5 tournaments, and he says he never won an opening game.
Never won an opening game.
So I think that the fact that we can win this game and people are still unhappy about it is, it's a credit to Gareth Southgate for where we are now. In the first sort of 16 years of my life, we were absolutely terrible, and now we're a real contender every single time. So I was happy enough with the 1-0 win. I think it'll be a good test, see how we get on against Denmark. But we should win the group. We should win all 3 games. If we draw with Denmark and then win the 3rd game, I'll be happy with that as well.
Nice to see Dusan Tadic as well, Steve. Obviously, he didn't start, which I think was more about their setup to deal with England. But once he came on, I thought he was all right.
Yeah, I mean, he did what he does, doesn't he? He kind of floats around in that little pocket where he's awkward to pick up as a defensive midfielder, and ultimately where you've got Alexander-Arnold as one of those where it's a position he's not wholly familiar with. He got a fair amount of space, but ultimately, I mean, how many actual chances did he create? We were able to shut down enough. I thought Gehi was excellent at the back.
Yeah. And that was one of the big questions that everybody had, wasn't it? How was he going to perform?
I was terrified of losing Harry Maguire, but Gehi,
because Stones and Gehi had only played together once, which was the Iceland game. And obviously that went swimmingly for everybody. So yeah, there was I think there was a natural concern over that. But no, I mean, he looked like he belonged. It was interesting actually, first half, that basically we were doubling up on Mitrovic whenever the ball went long. So Rice was basically in front, trying to either win it or distract him enough that he couldn't see the ball or do anything useful with it, and it largely worked. But it was interesting. We kind of stopped doing that second half. I think that was probably just because they didn't get it launched quite as often. Where we'd dropped off 10-15 yards, I think they were able to progress the ball a little bit more to feet. But I found it baffling that they took him off. Just at the point where they were kind of right, get it in the mixer, and you haven't got Alexander Mitrovic in there to win stuff. I mean, Vlahovic is fine, but he's not the same. He's not the same player. Vlahovic is better with ball at his feet. Mitrovic is the guy that's going to win everything in the air. if you get the ball in the right area. And I mean, that was a huge bonus for us, I thought. I mean, bringing him off and Tadic on, it's like, well, why would you bring the guy that's going to create stuff on if you're not going to keep the striker on? That was mad. But other than that, I thought, it was, we were kind of fine. But Serbia, I think will look at that second half and think we can finish second in this group. Certainly having seen what Denmark and Slovenia had to offer. Denmark kind of played the same game as us, really, in that they were quite good for about half an hour and then stopped playing. And I mean, Slovenia's goal when it came was coming, unlike kind of anything that Serbia really threw at us. They didn't really create anything proper, but Slovenia did carve out a few proper chances. So I think Serbia will fancy their chances against those two, and I mean, ultimately we should fancy our chances of finishing, getting 100% record out of this group stage.
The one thing that I didn't enjoy, and this was by instruction, or maybe it was just pure chaos and panic, but I didn't enjoy Jordan Pickford going long with every single ball that he got at a time we needed to wrest a bit of control. But again, that may have just been coming from the top.
I think that was a product of Serbia having pushed up a lot more. All of a sudden, he didn't have the passing lanes because obviously having taken Mitrovic off, you then only have one striker and he had two guys alongside him. So it was a 3 against the 4. So you didn't really have the space for him to play it out to any of the back four, really. And the dink over the defenders into the midfield was probably slightly too risky.
He played a couple of ridiculous passes out to, I think, when Bowen came on. He sort of like picked Bowen out from 60 yards away, and you just think, fair enough. I was the same. Yeah, when another one goes long, you're all moaning. Then you see it lands right on his foot, 60 meters away.
You think,
especially when Kane's obviously spent the previous hour getting the crap kicked out of him and has barely had a kick. I thought he was better second half, because I think we basically got people around him a little bit better. But slow start really for him, other than obviously the chance towards the end.